The year is 1912. The world stands on the precipice of change, yet in New York, the old world still reigns supreme from its ivory tower. And at the very pinnacle of that hierarchy sits none other than Colonel John Jacob Astor IV. To understand Astor on the Titanic, one cannot view him merely as a wealthy passenger. He was a symbol. Born into the Astor dynasty, the family known as the landlords of New York, John Jacob Astor IV inherited not just money, but an empire. Imagine a man for whom every step taken on Fifth Avenue tread upon ground owned by his family. At 47 years old, Astor possessed a fortune estimated at $87 million at the time. Adjusted for inflation, this figure sits between $2.4 and $2.8 billion today. But numbers do not tell the whole story. Astor's power lay in his control over the lifeblood of luxury. The legendary Waldorf Astoria, the St. Regis Hotel, and countless other prime real estate holdings. He was the epitome of the American dream in its most aristocratic form. Wealthy, intellectual, a Harvard graduate, inventor, and science fiction writer, and powerful. However, in the spring of 1912, the most powerful man in New York was running. He was not fleeing the law, but public opinion. His divorce from his first wife and subsequent remarriage to Madeline Force, a girl of only 18, 29 years his junior, had scandalized high society. The press attacked him, the New York elite shunned him. Seeking peace, Astor took his young bride on an extended honeymoon through Egypt and Europe. And then, when Madeline fell pregnant, they decided to return to America so that the child could be born on native soil. Their chosen vessel for return was a fateful decision, the RMS Titanic. April 10, 1912, Southampton Port. When John Jacob Astor IV boarded the Titanic with Madeline, his valet Victor Robbins, her maid Rosalie Bidois, and her nurse Caroline Endress, his presence turned the ship's maiden voyage into the social event of the century. The Titanic was advertised as unsinkable, a technological marvel of mankind, with first-class tickets costing up to $4,350, equivalent to over $100,000 today. The Titanic was a gathering place for illustrious names like Guggenheim, Strauss, Duff Gordon. Yet even among these stars, Astor was the sun. He and his wife occupied Parlor Suite C62/64, one of the most luxurious accommodations on the ship. Picture a room with a real coal-burning fireplace, exquisitely carved mahogany paneling, and furniture draped in rich damask silk. The first days at sea passed in tranquility. Astor, with his tall stature, carefully trimmed mustache, and calm demeanor, was often seen strolling on the private promenade or relaxing in the first-class smoking room. Survivors later recalled him as a man of few words, yet unfailingly polite. He did not flaunt his wealth, for his very presence was the ultimate proof of it. There is an anecdote that when the Titanic stopped in Cherbourg, France, Astor bought a newspaper. A newsboy ran after him to return the change, but Astor smiled and waved it away. To him, money at that moment was merely a tool for comfort, not a concern. He had no way of knowing that in just a few days all the money in his bank accounts would become meaningless against the power of nature. The night of April 14, 1912. The air was freezing, and the sea was as flat as glass. At 11:40 p.m., a slight shudder vibrated through the ship. In the first-class smoking room where Astor was conversing, the sound of clinking glasses was barely audible. Most passengers did not sense the severity of the situation. With a blind faith in Edwardian technology, they believed the Titanic was an impregnable fortress. But Astor was awakened by his wife, Madeline, who felt uneasy about the vibration. He reassured her but went out to investigate. Upon returning, he brought with him a piece of ice that had fallen onto the deck and joked to another passenger. "I asked for ice to be put in my drink, but this is ridiculous." That quip went down in history as a testament to human hubris in the face of disaster. Astor, like Captain Smith or the architect Thomas Andrews, initially did not believe or did not want to believe that their floating palace was dying. But as water began to flood the mailroom, the brutal truth slowly emerged. Astor, with the instincts of a seasoned man who had served in the military, Spanish-American War, quickly recognized the shift in the atmosphere. He did not panic. He returned to his cabin, woke Madeline, and instructed her to put on her lifebelt and dress warmly. He donned a dinner suit covered by a thick fur coat, his tie perfectly adjusted. Even in the face of death, the dignity of an Astor gentleman did not permit slovenliness. 1:45 a.m. April 15th. The bow of the Titanic had sunk deep into the black water. Chaos began to spread as everyone realized there were not enough lifeboats for everyone. Astor escorted his wife to lifeboat number 4. By this time, Madeline was 5 months pregnant and very frail. She clung to her husband, unwilling to let go. Astor helped her through the window of the promenade deck and into the boat. This was the defining moment, the moment that separated life from death, money from rules. Once Madeline was safe in the boat, Astor turned to Second Officer Charles Lightholler. He asked a simple question, not a command, not a plea, but a reasonable request from a concerned husband. "May I join my wife to protect her? She is in a delicate condition." Officer Lightholler looked Astor, the richest man in the world, in the eye and shook his head. "No, sir. Men are not allowed until the women are off." Another billionaire might have used money to bribe, power to threaten, or attempted to push through, but Astor did something that made history bow its head. He asked for the number of the boat so he could find his wife later, and then he stepped back. He took off his gloves, handed them to Madeline, and spoke his final words to her. "The sea is calm. You will be all right. We will meet in the morning." He kissed his wife gently on the forehead, then turned his back and walked away, yielding his place to other women and children. That was the last time Madeline ever saw her husband. The final minutes of John Jacob Astor IV on the Titanic have become legend. After lifeboat number 4 was lowered, he was seen standing on the boat deck with the writer Jacques Futrelle. The two men lit cigarettes, standing silently as they watched the chaotic crowd. Some accounts suggest that Astor went to the ship's kennels to release the dogs trapped inside, a small act of humanity amidst a massive tragedy. As the ship broke in two and began its final plunge, Astor did not jump into the sea in a panic. He clung to the railing, or perhaps was struck by a falling funnel, based on the condition of his body later found. But however it happened, he died as he had lived, proud and unbowed. Astor's death was a psychological shock to the entire Western world. It proved a cruel truth. Against the power of nature, money is utterly meaningless. $87 million could not buy a seat on a lifeboat. The reputation of the Astor family could not stop the freezing seawater from filling his lungs. On April 22nd, the body of John Jacob Astor IV was recovered by the cable ship C.S. Mackay Bennett. He was crushed and covered in soot, but he was easily identified by the initials JJA on his shirt collar. In his pockets they found a gold watch, diamond cufflinks, a diamond ring, 225 pounds sterling, and $2,440 in cash. But their owner had returned to dust. His funeral in New York was a major event. But the greatest pain belonged to Madeline. She survived, and on August 14, 1912, she gave birth to a baby boy, naming him John Jacob Astor VI. The boy was dubbed the Titanic baby. Astor's death marked the end of an era. It was the death knell for the innocence and arrogance of the Edwardian upper class. After the Titanic, the world entered World War I, and the old social rules that Astor represented slowly shattered. Epilogue: When the Ocean Levels All. The story of John Jacob Astor IV on the Titanic is not merely the story of the richest man drowning. It is a symbolic tragedy. He represented the pinnacle of human civilization at that time: wealth, power, and mastery over technology. But in the moment of life and death, he chose to discard the title of billionaire to retain the title of human. His act of stepping back to make way for women and children, though perhaps seen as adhering to rigid rules, was a testament to dignity, the only asset that retains value when death is imminent. The freezing ocean that night took the lives of 1,500 people, from the stokers in the hold to the richest man in the world on the promenade deck. In that sub-zero cold, all class boundaries were erased. John Jacob Astor IV, with all his immense fortune, was ultimately just a lost soul in the vast sea, leaving posterity a costly lesson in humility.